The outer shelves grew stranger the deeper one ventured. Here, where the catalogers rarely came, the coral had been allowed to grow wild. Following patterns that seemed more like music than architecture. Mirren found herself drifting toward a section she didn't quite remember, though she had swum these corridors for 7 years. The water felt different here, thicker somehow, weighted with age. The glow from the coral was amber rather than blue, warm as candlelight. It cast shadows that seemed to move with intention, shadows that had a purpose of their own. She almost turned back. Her tablet was nearly full, and there were still 3 more sections to catalog before the shift change. But something pulled her forward. Not quite a sound. Not quite a feeling, but something between the two. A resonance in her bones, perhaps. A memory that wasn't hers. The collapsed shelf revealed itself gradually. At first, she thought it was simply a darker patch where the coral had grown thick. Then her light caught the broken edges the way the living stone had fractured and fallen, opening a gap like a mouth in the archive's ancient wall. The entrance was narrow, just wide enough for her to slip through if she turned sideways. Beyond it, she could see the faint suggestion of chamber walls. And within that space, a light that pulsed with a rhythm she felt in her chest. Her breath caught. Her gloved hand reached forward, fingers spreading against the rough coral at the entrance's edge. Protocol dictated she report any structural changes immediately. Protocol dictated she mark the location and return with a senior archivist. But the light beyond pulsed again. And Mirren knew, with the certainty of dream logic, that if she turned away now, she would never find this place again. She slipped through the gap. Mirren's hands moved through the water with a precision born of years. Her fingers traced the preservation sigils she had learned as an apprentice, each gesture deliberate, practiced. So, the ancient memory fish shuddered beneath her touch. Its impossible colors bled into the surrounding water like ink dissolving in a stream. She worked faster now. Her breath came quick and shallow as she cataloged each fragment surfacing from the depths. A word in a language she didn't know. The geometric pattern of a city's streets. The taste of something sweet and bitter at once. But they slipped through her awareness like sand through an hourglass. She felt the weight of thousands of years collapsing into nothing. Her hands trembled, no longer precise, but grasping, desperate. She reached for a memory of music, some kind of harmonic resonance that made her chest ache with its beauty. But it dissolved before she could fix it in the preservation medium. Another fragment rose. Children playing in bioluminescent gardens, their laughter like bells. Gone. A formula for something important. Something that had taken generations to perfect. Gone. Mirren's vision blurred, though whether from tears or the strange light of the dissolving fish, she couldn't say. Then, she felt it. A pulse. Not erratic like the dissolution, but steady, deliberate. The memory fish was still alive, still conscious, in whatever way these ancient vessels retained consciousness. And it was trying to tell her something. The pulse came again, gentle but insistent. Mirren realized with a start that while she had been frantically chasing the fragments that were fading, the fish had been holding something back, something it wanted her to see. Her hands stilled in the water. The trembling stopped. She let the next dissolving fragment go without reaching for it, and another and another. The water around her grew quiet. The fish's colors settled into a softer luminescence, deep blues and greens, with threads of silver running through like veins of starlight. It pulsed once more, and this time Mirren understood. He was not meant to save everything. She was meant to witness what had been chosen. With careful reverence, she placed both palms flat against the fish's largest scale and opened herself completely to what it had been waiting to show her. The memory unfolded like a flower opening to the sun. She found herself floating, in a vast chamber filled with beings of light and water. They moved through each other like currents in a tide pool, their forms both distinct and fluid. She could feel their presence, their consciousness, like a warmth against her skin. They were gathered in consensus, she understood, making a choice that would echo through millennia. Not arguing, not debating, but feeling their way toward agreement with a patience that made her hurried desperation seem like the frantic scrabbling of a drowning person. They were choosing what to preserve. Before them floated countless memory fish, empty and waiting. And the beings were selecting, with exquisite care, which memories would be recorded, which would be saved for whatever future might find them. Mirren felt her heart clench as she watched them set aside what she would have thought essential: the technical achievements, the great discoveries, the complete historical records of their rise and flourishing. These things, she felt them agree, could be deduced by others. These things were not the truth of who they had been. Instead, they reached for something else. A memory of laughter shared over a communal meal, the kind that starts in one person and spreads like ripples until the whole gathering is shaking with joy. The first moment a child discovered they could make their own light, the wonder in their eyes, the proud tenderness of the parent who witnessed it, the feeling of being held during grief. Not the grief itself, but the comfort, the presence of someone who stayed. The quiet satisfaction of meaningful work, hands in soil or water or light, creating something that would nourish others. Mirren watched as they recorded a moment of collective music-making. Not the perfected performance, but the messy, beautiful process of finding harmony together. She felt them preserve the memory of an elder teaching a young one. Not the information being passed, but the quality of attention, the respect, the love. They saved the sensation of floating in warm water after a long day, the peace of it, the way it felt to let the tension drain away. They saved the moment of reconciliation after conflict, the vulnerability and courage it required, the relief and renewed connection it brought. Each memory they chose was small, intimate, achingly specific. A particular sunset that had moved them to silence, the way one being had of tilting their head when listening, that made others feel truly heard. The smell of a flower that only bloomed once in a lifetime. The texture of a material they had woven together, its softness a reminder of their interdependence. None of it was grand. All of it was essential. They were not preserving what they had accomplished, Mirren realized. They were preserving what they had loved, what had brought them joy, what had connected them to each other and to the world they inhabited. What had made their existence meaningful? The memory began to fade. not dissolving, but completing. Miren found herself back in the hidden chamber, her hands still resting on the ancient fish. Her face was wet with tears. Her chest felt cracked open, exposed. The understanding that flooded through her was both devastating and liberating. She had been so afraid of loss, so desperate to save everything, that she had forgotten to truly see what was actually here. She had been cataloging, preserving, grasping at fragments, but she had not been witnessing. So she had not been honoring the choices already made. The memory fish pulsed one final time beneath her palms, and she felt its gratitude. It had waited centuries, perhaps, to share this with someone who could understand, someone who needed to understand. Miren pulled her hands back slowly, reverently, and watched as the fish's dissolution continued. But differently now, not a tragedy, but a completion. It had fulfilled its purpose. It had passed on what it was meant to pass on. The fragments that continued to fade were not losses, she understood now. They were releases. Letting go with intention was its own form of preservation, preserving not the thing itself, but the space for new things to grow. She floated in the quiet chamber, her body exhausted, her mind strangely peaceful. Round her, the wild coral seemed to glow more softly, as if it too understood. Curation, she thought, is an act of love. To choose what to keep is to honor what matters. To let go is not to forget, but to make room. She had spent years trying to save everything, driven by the fear that any loss was a failure. But these ancient beings had known better. They had understood that meaning comes not from the volume of what we preserve, but from the intention with which we choose. The enormous memory fish was nearly transparent now. Its colors faded to the faintest shimmer. But Miren no longer felt the panic, the desperate need to stop it. Instead, she felt a profound gratitude for what she had witnessed, for what they had chosen to show her, for the reminder that she too could choose, that she could release the fear that had been driving her, and instead tend to what remained with the care and attention it deserved. Not grasping, but honoring. Not hoarding, but witnessing. The shift in her felt seismic and yet gentle, like a tide finally turning after the longest night. As the last shimmer of the ancient fish faded into the water, Miren closed her eyes and breathed. And the archives were still full of memories, needing care. There was still work to do, Taz. But she would do it differently now. She would remember what these beings had taught her. That the memories worth saving are not always the ones that seem most important, but the ones that remind us what it means to be alive, to be connected, to love and be loved. She would look for those memories now. She would tend them with reverence, and she would let go with intention and grace of the rest.